It's been over a year since all of us were forced to embrace the new normal. Now things are slowly starting to improve, but a lot of us still have questions like, is it okay for our kids to go back to school? When can we finally travel again? And for those of us who are in the market for a new car, is it really safe to go and visit showrooms at the moment? Now that's why I'm here in Mazda's showroom in Glen Marie, Shah Alam, to show you that there's really not much to worry about if you comply with all of the SOPs in place. So let's go. So even if you're here to service your Mazda as opposed to buying a brand new one, as you can see on the after sales floor, it's business as usual, but with the necessary social distancing measures in place. From the reception to the amenities in the waiting area to the service itself, no corners have been cut, so you get the full Mazda service experience as a customer, which is exactly what you want when buying a car with 5 years of warranty and free service. If you buy a Mazda and insist on staying home for your own safety, that's not a problem as well, because Mazda offers a Mazda contactless service where you can have your car either picked up from your home or even serviced at your doorstep. Now the reason why I'm here today is to have a closer look at yet another Mazda SUV. If you don't know by now, SUVs are a very important pillar in Mazda's product strategy. We've seen the CX-5 in the past, we've seen the CX-9, but what if you want something just a little bit bigger than the CX-5 but not as big as the CX-9? That brings me to one of the what I think is the most underrated SUVs currently on sale in Malaysia today, the Mazda CX-8. Now at first glance, it may be easy to confuse the CX-8 for the smaller CX-5, but if you look really closely, there are some unique features. You have the horizontal slats on the grille, the tail lights are a little bit different, and of course the side profile, well, it's a slightly longer car. But what is unmistakable is the Mazda identity. This is evidently a product of Mazda's Kodo design philosophy, and I must say, for an SUV, it does look pretty good. Now the CX-8 range in Malaysia is actually pretty comprehensive. You have two powertrains to choose from, a 2.5 litre petrol with front-wheel drive or a 2.2 litre diesel with all-wheel drive across 4 different variants, and you even have a say as to how many seats you want in your car. You can have this CX-8 with either 7 seats or 6 seats, and as you can see, even though it has 3 rows of seats, the boot is still very much usable. There's still quite a bit of space here. Now if I were to choose, my favorite is the CX-8 with the 6-seat layout, and I will show you why right now. Now I know of a lot of people who have maybe 5 or 6 people in their family, and they think that maybe a 7-seater is an answer to all of their mobility needs, but the CX-8 proves that, well, that is not always the case. So from the mid-plus variant onwards, you get 2 dedicated seats in the middle, and to me this makes a world of difference. It feels like, to me, this is the most comfortable and most premium passenger experience you can get in an SUV from under 200,000 ringgit. Add a little bit more for the high variant and you get a center console which gives you plenty of space to put your tanks. There are charging ports right there, cup holders, and even heated seats. But I know some of you don't really care about what happens behind. A lot of you are more interested in what happens in the driver's seat, so let's take this car for a drive. Now I'm at the wheel of the CX-8 2.5 Mid Plus, and the first thing that you'll notice that's a little bit different from the car I was in earlier is that the seats are made of fabric.
Now in the Mid Plus, you can upgrade to leather seats for about 4,500 ringgit, but I'm quite happy with these. These are very comfortable, and what's more important is that the seating position is quite spot on for an SUV. You don't feel like it's too high up, you don't feel like you're driving something very commercial. Now Mazda puts a lot of thought into its whole Jinba Itai philosophy of putting the driver at one with the vehicle, and as far as where I'm sitting, everything feels very natural, very intuitive, and yeah, it really puts you in the mood to go out for a drive. Now underneath the hood of the Mazda CX-8, it's all SkyActiv technology, starting with the 2.5 litre SkyActiv G petrol engine up front with about 192 horsepower and 258 Newton meters of torque. That output gets channeled to the front wheels via a 6-speed SkyActiv drive automatic transmission, and although it looks very conventional on paper in the sense that there is no forced induction or electrification, it's a very high compression powertrain that is very responsive and consequently very nice to drive. On top of the whole SkyActiv powertrain, well, we also have, like most new Mazdas, G vectoring control, or GVC for short, which basically modulates the engine torque going to the front wheels mid-corner or whenever you're steering to basically smoothen the steering response and keep the car level-headed through corners for the benefit of both driver and passengers alike. In terms of onboard safety, the talk is all about semi-autonomous driver aids these days, and it's important to remember that Mazda is one of the few early adopters, or rather pioneers, in this area with iActive Sense. So for example, this car, it's essentially a mid-spec CX-8 or mid-plus to be specific, but even though it's not a range topper, it still gets some very useful features like adaptive front lighting, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, and smart city brake support up front.
So for what it is worth, the CX-8 is a very competitively priced car. It is locally assembled after all, and well, prices are quite accessible, even more so if you act fast enough to maximize the ongoing SST discounts. Having spent a few days with the car, it is very easy to fall in love with this car's 6-seat configuration, how refined it is on the move, and well, how good it looks, especially in this soul red paint job. You have cars that are labeled as drivers' cars, and there are cars that we say like they're more family oriented or they prioritize the passengers even more. But in a car like the CX-8, you get the sense that every single occupant is important no matter which seat you're in. Whether you're driving, whether you're seated in the middle row or the last row, everything just feels right. And for that, I just have to give props to this car. Like I said earlier, a rather underrated SUV and one that I really like a lot.